We are Games Animals.
Hello, welcome back to GamesAnimal TV. You like the new intro music? That was the GamesAnimal theme remix by a video games music producer called Urban Midnight. He's also done a unique tune, a new tune for us, which we'll be hearing later on in the show when we look at some retro gaming footage. Yeah, I quite like it. It's a bit 90s, bit of me, maybe. Anyway, as always, I apologise. It's been so long since the last one. It always is. As you know, GamesAnimal TV is non-profit making. I do these shows as and when I find the time, and I think I have something interesting to talk to people about, and hopefully they're worth it when they come along. The spark for this one was many people may realise if they follow me on social media and that about 5 years ago I moved home, and I moved house, and I'd been in the other house for about 16 years, had a big clear out, as you do. I sold a lot of my games collection because it wasn't getting used and games should be played, and there's a few things I wish I hadn't sold now, but I sold them all to collectors. They've all gone to good homes. Anyway, when I was moving house, I had my whole magazine collection. Now, basically, throughout my career, I've kept at least 2 to 4 copies of every single magazine I've published, edited, written for. I've kept them all meticulously in boxes and in the garage, as was. So when we came to move, I was very, very careful, reboxed them, strapped them all up. I don't know what I was going to do with them, but this was my career and I wanted to just safeguard it a little bit. Anyway, somewhere along the way, when I got to the other end, the magazines had disappeared. We had a number of friends doing runs to tips for us with various bits of rubbish and things we were sorting out, and all I can imagine is the magazine boxes got mixed up with the rubbish boxes and they got taken to the tip. I was quite devastated because, like I say, that was my career. But life goes on. Anyway, along came the coronavirus lockdown, which as I'm filming this now, we are all involved in. And I decided one of the jobs I was going to do whilst not working was to go out and tidy out my garage in my new house. So I went out there, and then lo and behold, there's a bunch of boxes there that are unopened. I got a knife and I opened one of the boxes, and there was about half of my magazine collection. It had come with us, but it got unpacked and buried under a load of boxes, and we thought it had gone, and it hadn't. Anyway, I put this on the GamesAnimal Facebook page. Those who follow the Facebook page will know. Quite a few people were quite excited about it because people like to hear about the old gaming magazines from the golden age of gaming. So I said what I would do is I will do a GamesAnimal TV based around that box. And I've kept my promise, which I made to certain people on that page at the time, and that is I've not looked in the box. So I don't know what's in there. I know there's a ton of my magazines and stuff, and I thought we'll go through it now and maybe we'll talk about some old magazines, etc. as we do it. And I can have the fun of finding out what I've managed to save from my collection, because I was absolutely delighted to find this box, as you can imagine. I just hope it's got what I hope it's got in it. Anyway, so let's have a little dig through the box, and we can talk about old magazines one at a time. Some of you will remember them, some of you will be too young. Of course, magazines these days, it's a dying art form, isn't it? I mean, everyone's getting all their information on the internet, and it's a damn shame, because magazines used to be so important. This was the only way you could get your information. You built an almost family feeling with the journalists. There was certainly trust between certain journalistic teams and the opinions they gave you, as far as that went to forming your purchasing decisions. Now, of course, it's all on the internet. Everything's like fast food journalism, and it's so quick and over. It's a damn shame. But for those who remember, here we go. Right, this is one that came towards the later stages of my career. Station magazine. Now, we got to a time, unfortunately, this was another sad thing for me, I think, in magazines, where the readership was expecting extra value with their magazines. Back in the early days, when I used to buy magazines like Ace and Mean Machines, See You Amiga, things like that. All right, See You Amiga often came with a cover disc, but generally you didn't have to have any added value. The magazine was enough. You wanted to read the magazine, you wanted to hear what the team had to say, you wanted to see what they've been up to, you wanted to read about the latest games, find the adverts for mail order, how to get those games nice and cheap. But as life went on, towards the end of the 90s, everybody expected added value from their magazines. And then the Ultimate came along, which was the official PlayStation magazine from Future. They got an official license from Sony, and they were able to put a disc on the front of every issue, which was full of official PlayStation demos and third-party demos. Now, this was deemed the Holy Grail because the Sony PlayStation went crazy, of course. PlayStation 2 went crazy, and all of a sudden you had an official magazine, which was premium price, top dollar. I can't remember what it cost, but I think it was about $4.99, something like that, which was a lot of money back then. But it had a disc on the front every month. Good journalism. It was a good magazine, to be fair, throughout. So you were getting good value just in the magazine, but also you were getting games you could play. So you weren't just looking at the pictures, you actually could play the games. And it cleaned up. It absolutely hammered everybody in the ABCs. The ABCs are how magazines were rated, really, back then. That was how you could tell what the circulation was in a magazine. ABC was the Audit Bureau of Circulation. So that was how you could tell how many copies were being sold, so you knew who the leading magazines were. And the official PlayStation magazine was whipping everybody's arse. So when I joined a company called Rapide in Exeter, one of my key projects, if you like, on joint was eventually to put together a magazine that could compete with the official PlayStation magazine, and that was almost impossible to do without a cover disc. Now, that was thought to be impossible because Future had tied up the official license with Sony, and Sony's were very particular about their discs and the copyright and how things played. So it was very, very hard to do it. You had to go through Sony themselves and their plants in Austria, one was. And anyway, because I'd been working at THQ for a year, I'd been putting submissions through Nintendo and Sega and also Sony. So I knew how the Sony submission process worked. I knew the people inside of Sony. I knew the games testers that tested the cover discs, etc. And I had an idea that I could do it, and we did do it. Mark Smith at Rapide trusted me with the project. We went ahead with it, and we became the only magazine, the only non-official magazine to run with PlayStation game demos every single month. It was a huge coup, a huge coup. It was a massive investment for Rapide, but we did what was thought to be unachievable. The magazine went on to sell 132,645 copies according to its ABC, which smashed every other magazine other than the official PlayStation magazine, pretty much. It was the largest selling independent non-official licensed magazine of all time at the time. And here's one. This issue came with January 1999. I think it came with Toka Music, The Unholy War, F198, Akuji on the demo disc, and also a free booklet, everything you ever needed to know about the PlayStation. And all of this in a bag with a year planner on the back. It was a hell of a package. And of course, these magazines came out 13 times a year, so you only had 4 weeks to put all of that together: a full magazine, reviews, a disc, a book, the whole package, get it sent off, get it all printed, get it all put together, and put in a polythene bag so it could be sent out. A massive, massive undertaking. But we were dedicated to trying to get a bit of that PlayStation market back off the official magazine. And we did what we could. It was a very, very hard magazine to put out there. Lots of tales I could tell. It's the only time I've nearly had a breakdown when producing a magazine. The first issue, there was so much pressure, as you can imagine, because of the money involved. There was a mini mutiny on the magazine where a number of members tried to get me thrown off the magazine because I was a bit of a tyrant, apparently. But I brought in other people to replace them, and eventually. And we got there. We got to the deadline, but we were working right through the night, most nights. And I remember when the magazine went off to press, the day I came in after the magazine had gone to press, I sat in my chair and literally for about 3 or 4 minutes, I didn't know where I was. I didn't know why I was there. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. I absolutely melted down. Very scary, very scary. And then it all comes back to you and the staff start arriving and you get a cup of tea and you're fine. But for a moment, I had a complete meltdown, and almost certainly down to the stress of that magazine. Anyway, another magazine we produced at Rapide. Rapide was a period for me from about 97 to 99. And another magazine we produced was Total PlayStation. As you can see, once again, similar package we were putting out on the shelf. Total PlayStation did not come with a cover disc. That was only Station. And but this one has an official PlayStation game caddy, and it also has the year planner on the back. So I guess we went with a very similar package to we'd gone to with Station, and just put that one out as well. Total PlayStation was a magazine that Rapide already had in their portfolio when I joined the company. I took over as the managing editor of the magazine, of course eventually the editorial director at Rapide. So it was a magazine that was very much under my jurisdiction, and in the first year of being there, my job was to get ABCs for all the magazines. As I've explained, that was the way to find out what the magazines were selling, which made it easier to sell them to advertisers and sponsors, because they wanted to know how many people they were going to reach with their adverts. So, and the company hadn't had ABCs before, so that was something I got for them. And we got a bunch of market-leading ABCs at the time, and of course made a big fuss about it, and had a big party, a great party actually, in London, and good times, good times. Let's have a go through this book. Let's see what else we've got. It's another Total PlayStation. Now, going back here, X-Gen issue 1. Now, X-Gen, very interesting magazine. Okay, at this time I was with Paragon Publishing. This would have been around about, the funny thing with magazines is they don't often have the year on the front. They have the issue date and issue number, but not often the year. This one would have been around about 1995, 96, I think, X-Gen. Now, X-Gen, once again, taking its lead from Future a little bit. Future had a great magazine at the time called Edge magazine. I don't know if it still runs. Now, Edge magazine was a beautiful magazine, really nice state-of-the-art design. The paper was beautiful, which matters when you're in publishing. The front cover was matte laminate, which most magazines weren't back then. It just felt like quality. It was thick, and it was really, really technical. It was a lot of detail, a lot about all the latest cutting-edge formats and games, etc. And everybody loved that magazine. It didn't sell particularly well. It sold okay. I mean, it made money, but because it was seen as a prestige magazine, advertisers wanted to be in there, I assume. So it did very well for itself. And anybody who was very serious about their gaming bought Edge magazine. We all bought Edge magazine and read it. And once again, at the time, Paragon was expanding quite quickly and looking at new markets. And we thought, well, we should have a high quality multi-format magazine. But what we decided to do was we wanted to make it more lifestyle-y. That was something that a lot of games journalists always wanted to do. A lot of games journalists were games journalists because they were waiting to get into a lifestyle magazine. Some were keen gamers. I won't put out names because I don't want to ruin their reputations, but there's a lot of guys I know who were waiting to get on a guitar magazine or waiting to get on a car magazine or whatever, but they went into games magazines because they cut their teeth that way while they were waiting for opportunities to open. Not necessarily at Paragon, but at some other places. Anyway, so we all wanted really to be doing movies and clothing and all other things as well in our magazines, as well as gaming. We've been doing gaming for years. So X-Gen magazine was a magazine that we tried to take to another level, really. You know, it had all the usual gaming reviews, etc. It was very loud, very state-of-the-art design at the time. Of course, there was beat-em-up features and that in there. But also we had other things like we'd look at clothing that was coming out for gaming. We'd look at the latest latest stuff that was going on in development. And we'd also have complete breakdowns of every format, and there'd be movies in there, and there'd be the internet, which was a pretty new thing back then. And eventually we'd have like a breakdown of what was going on every month, you know, with game releases, with what was going on the television and the cinema, etc. It didn't do great as a magazine, to be fair, but it was massively enjoyable to work on, because it was just something a bit different, you know. We've been doing so many games magazines for so many years, you know. Sega, you know, PlayStation, Nintendo, Atari, 3DO. It was just nice to do a magazine that had all of that, but we could just go a little bit outside of the box if we wanted to, if we thought there was some currency in it. Yeah, another copy of X-Gen, Rock and Roll Racing 2. Anybody remember that? Lovely games, the Rock and Roll Racing games, actually. And of course, as always, the logos, the artwork was stunning, absolutely stunning. And yeah, like we say, stuff that was just a little bit more style magazine-y, not the sort of stuff you normally saw in a games magazine. This copy of X-Gen has it's got a strap on the front. I don't want to lose, but Pamela Anderson, Babes in Toyland, she was in the game, featured in the game. Of course, she looks great. Baywatch was huge back then, so we put Pamela Anderson on the front cover, you know, because we could. And then Memoirs from Hell, a whole magazine about Doom and the history of Doom, etc. Yeah, X-Gen was a fun magazine to work on. Great fun. What else have I got in here? Let's have a look. That's another X-Gen, Wing Commander, with the Games War book on the front. Extracts from it. Games War was a book that was written by the editor of, he had been the editor of CDW, I think, and he went to MCV, Stuart Dinsey, and a few other people, Michael Hayes, and great book if ever you find it. I don't think I've got my copy anymore. I think that got lost with another box of magazines, but it goes into the whole history of gaming quite meticulously. Not particularly an interesting read, but if you're into gaming, all the facts are in there. X-Gen magazine again, this time Ultra 64, obviously the early developments of the Nintendo 64 system, which was called Ultra 64 back in those days before it later became what it became. Right, Station magazine, used to love these. When you get the budget off your publishing house to go along with something like this, a nice silver foil logo at the top, Metal Gear Solid, and we foiled all the lettering on the front to make a beautiful magazine. On the disc, Lara, Metal Gear, Actual Soccer 3, yeah, lovely stuff. Great games, of course. Now, this is history in the making. As I said, Station magazine, you know, knocked the doors down, if you like, for putting official PlayStation discs on the front of an unofficial magazine, because that hadn't been done before in that marketplace. But what we had done way back in November 1993 was we'd become the first Sega magazine to run with a disc on the front when we produced Mega Power magazine. And Mega Power was our independent Mega Drive magazine, Mega Drive dedicated, and it was doing okay, but it was struggling just a little bit. It was late into the market compared to some of the other magazines that had already got there, so we needed a push. So the publisher at the time was a gentleman called Pat Kelly. I was the editor, and we managed to put a demo of Thunderhawk on Mega CD on the front cover, because of course the Mega CD had come along, which meant you could now get Mega Drive games on a CD, which made it easy to get them duplicated and put on the front cover. You couldn't put a Mega Drive cartridge on the front cover, too expensive, too clumpy, but we could put Mega Drive games on a Mega CD. So there's the first copy of Mega Power that came with a disc on the front. Absolutely groundbreaking yet again. This one, Microcosm on the disc. The front cover was EA game, ice hockey game, but we got the actual artist that did the artwork for the game itself to do some artwork for us for our front cover. I think we got the publishing house to pay for it. We wanted to keep the artwork, but they wanted to use it for the front of their game. So we didn't get to do that. It'd be nice to do that because I used to like to keep the artwork if I could. And this was a beautiful one, Mega Power front cover. Once again, I got an artist to exclusively design that front cover of Raiden versus Goro, and I still have that artwork somewhere because a lot of the publishing houses that I worked for, once the magazine had gone, they'd move on and things would get tatty and beaten up, and I always thought keeping the artworks was very important, and I managed to keep quite a few of them because I just didn't want them to get destroyed and to get tatty and ruined. What else do we have here? PlayStation Solutions. Back in that day, everybody had a Solutions magazine of some kind. You have to remember this was all pre-internet. There was not much internet around at the time. I mean, not to be fair, PlayStation Solutions wasn't pre-internet. The internet was chugging along around about 97, 98, but it still wasn't what it is today. It was still hard to find the information, so you would buy solution magazines which would have complete guides of games, cheat codes, etc., complete level fabrication, so you knew where to go, what doors to open, etc. Solutions magazines were very, very important back then. Another solution magazine, this is one this time I did for Paragon, Ultimate Player. Now, Ultimate Player, once again, I think I had the front cover painted by an illustrator. I knew a lot of very good illustrators back then. And Ultimate Player, just multi-format solutions magazine, cheap magazine. If anybody's watching this that wasn't around in the magazine age and thinks the internet was always there, and if you got stuck you could always just go and get the information off the internet, all the special moves, etc. You couldn't. Guys like us had to work our asses off putting these magazines together so that people had all the playing guides, all the tips, all the maps for the game, so they could progress. These playing magazines, these solution magazines were massively important. Total PlayStation with Resident Evil 3 on it. Station magazine with Premier Manager 99 on it. Viva Football, Warzone 2100, and Final Fantasy 8 was the cover game. Beautiful cover, that. Beautiful cover. Station magazine with Gex, deep cover gecko on the front. Gex had done all right. It was a nice piece of artwork they sent us. I think it was a Playboy girl or something who was big at the time. We put her on the front cover because why wouldn't we? This was the first ever edition of Ultimate Player, like I say, our multi-format solutions magazine. If I can get Street Fighter on the front of a magazine, I always will. Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. God, I got tons of magazines here. This is great. More X-Gens. X-Gen with Adidas Power Soccer with Brian Moore, RIP, on the front. X-Gen with Killer Instinct 2. Still the mix of of lifestyle-y stuff and video games. Boys Toys, stripped for Sony. Trying to be a bit more laddie. The whole Lads Mag thing was big back then. Loaded magazine, front magazine. So we tried to get as many models into the magazines as we could to make them look a lot more cool, make them look a lot more grown up as we thought at the time than the normal gaming magazines. Now these magazines aren't gaming, so I'll just push them back to one side. Tattoo Master magazine. What a lot of people don't realise is that when I left the games industry and the magazine industry, I set up my own tattoo studio, and for a couple of years a publisher approached me about taking over Tattoo Master magazine, which is a magazine based on tattooing, but it was for the trade. It's not for the general public because it gave tips on tattooing, inks, machinery, products, how to draw, how to paint, that kind of thing, all the relevant stuff that goes with being a tattoo artist, but that we don't want the general public to know because it's not for them. So we ran that for a little while. I ran that one for just over a year or so until it was just proving to be too much work with the studio as well. So we let that one go in the end. Station magazine, more Station magazine. I think that was issue number 0, which is interesting. That's the dummy issue. That's the dummy issue that we put out in order to get advertisers interested and on board. You tend to produce dummy issues, almost like a pilot TV show, which you stick out there, so that everyone can get a feel for what the magazine's going to be like. What you can see here with a dummy issue, sorry, trying to get the camera, is that, so you got Pretty Evil there, you got Pretty Evil there as well, and a little bit further on you'll get it again, because what you do is you don't design right and put all the effort into a whole magazine to make a dummy out of it. You make, say, make a 16-page section or 14-page section, and then duplicate it throughout, because the magazine then still feels like the magazine. Everybody knows what the quality of the paper and the cover is going to be like, how big it's going to feel, what design is going to feel like overall, but you don't do the full design work. Total N64, lovely front cover. That was the N64 magazine that we produced at Rapide Publishing. Once again, I didn't edit it or write on it. I was the managing editor and editorial director of that magazine. Now, this isn't an early copy. Hold on, let me get rid of these. That's Station again. A lot of Shadow Man going on around that time, obviously. Now, this magazine, this isn't an early copy. This is one of our later copies of it. I'm trying to see, issue 11. Play magazine. Play magazine was Paragon's unofficial PlayStation magazine. Now, producing a PlayStation magazine back in those days was really tricky, because Sony were really, really strict on their copyrights, and of course they sold the license to Future and some other people, I'm sure, overseas, and that. So they protected their copyrights. So they were very, very fussy about what you could and couldn't put on the front cover of a magazine. So it became very, very hard to put a PlayStation magazine out that was clearly a PlayStation magazine, because there were certain things you couldn't mention. It got worse later on, but early on, clearly we could say PlayStation on the front cover, and we could have the controllers on the front cover. So, but later on, when I got to Rapide, that became harder and harder. People that had paid for the license were becoming a little bit stricter about other people using it. Fair enough, more than fair enough when you've paid money for it. So Play we produced at Paragon as the unofficial PlayStation magazine, and I think it was one of the longest running PlayStation magazines in the market. I think it was still going until a few years ago. It's done very well for itself. It's a magazine I'm very, very proud of. The logo was wonderful, designed by a gentleman called Mark Kendrick. He was a bit of a design genius, and it had that kind of Japanesey, independent sort of feel to it. And I was a sucker back then for single name titles. I wanted always single name titles, because I think things stay in your head. It's like my tattoo studio is called Revolver, because that's all you need to know. Revolver, it sticks in your head. My own publishing company many years ago was called Predator. And I called this magazine Play. When I did a big PlayStation magazine for Rapide, I called it Station. I like things to just have bang, straight names. So you can say, oh, what magazine are you buying this week? Oh, I'm going to get Play, I'm going to get Station. It's easy to remember. Okay, now, very much like Paragon did X-Gen. So they did like an Edge kind of cloney magazine, something that was a little bit more higher quality, bigger production values, multi-format magazine. So Rapide came along and did one eventually. Theirs was called Total Control. And Total Control was a beautiful magazine in that the people that put it together, the guys that worked on it, were very, very enthusiastic about it. They were very into this magazine and making sure they got the latest on all the latest games and behind the scenes, information and news, etc. They loved this magazine, and they worked very hard on it. But the publisher as well, Rapide, At the same time as spending a lot of money on Station magazine, they also made available large funds for this magazine to have some amazing front covers. Like we had like a die cut front cover look, so you can see the characters, the Pokemon characters inside, but you can see them through the front cover, almost like you're seeing them on the PlayStation screen, Game Boy screen. And you know, that sort of thing costs an awful lot of money, and it's a big commitment from the publishers. So Total Control became a magazine that a lot of us at Rapide loved dearly, because it really showed what the talented people at the company could do given the budgets. Okay, this magazine, don't know if there's any more of these here. This is just one by itself. DVD Monthly. Now, what people may or may not realize is when I left Games World in 1998, I didn't walk out on it. I just asked to be let out of my contract halfway through because I didn't like the way the show was going. Rapide then, I put all my energies into Rapide, but Rapide unfortunately wound up in early to mid 99. So I had a family to support. I had to work out what to do, so I decided to set up my own publishing company. You need money, you need investment. I went out and I got investors, thankfully. And but what I decided was that I'd had enough of operating in the games industry. I wanted to enjoy games as games, not play them just purely because I was reviewing them, or because you know, I was going to be driving to Liverpool or Sheffield or Birmingham or Scotland or somewhere to play in a challenge. I just wanted to play games, and I loved movies. And DVD had just come along. DVD was a big deal, and so what I decided to do was to set up Predator Publishing, which is my own publishing house, and produce a movie magazine, DVD Monthly. Now, DVD Monthly was wonderfully successful. It ran for 7 to 8 years, I think, which is incredible for a magazine. For a while, we were able to put discs on the front for people, but for the large part, it ran without any discs on the front, and it just did really, really well for me. And it was a real breath of fresh air for me. Like I say, I absolutely love movies, and to be able to watch copious amounts of movies, be sent copious amounts of movies. I mean, my DVD collection is phenomenal. You know, if you are in a pub quiz and there's going to be a movie round, I'm the guy you want, okay? I'm the guy you want on your team. We have won many pub quizzes over the years based on the movie round being last, and me coming along and pipping the opposition. I love films. DVD Monthly was amazing for me. Okay, let's see if there's anything else interesting in here that we haven't talked about. Total PlayStation, F199, Total PlayStation with Messiah. This is something nice we did for a while. This was a feature of Total PlayStation for a while. We had like a little, you can't see it so clearly there, but it's a flap that goes on the outside of the magazine, and then we would tuck a book or a guide, a playing guide, inside the magazine there, and we'd we'd then put the whole thing in a bag. It was a nice little package, nice little product. We paid the extra for lovely metallic fifth colours on the logos, etc., on the front cover. We made it very, 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 very desirable. And then the grand redesign came along, and we took Total PlayStation and we made it a bit more modern and a bit cleaner, and took it up to the next level. But there was always a need to be redesigning magazines and changing how they looked, because the market was changing so much, and to be fair, you know, print was dying. When I came into magazines, you know, with Paragon, right at the start of the 90s, you know, magazines were selling huge amounts. I think Sega Pro was selling 70,000 copies, you know, every 4 weeks or so. And then gradually that boomed, and then gradually it started dying down and dying down. There was a saturation point, too many magazines out there. People realized it was a nice quick business to get into to make a lot of money. And then the internet came along, and of course people were getting all their information for free. So so ended the reign of the magazines, and now of course you hardly see any out there at all. Total PlayStation again, Resident Evil 2, MK4, just beautiful, beautiful covers, lovely design, cracking magazine. Oh, there's the first ever edition of Mega Power. This is before we worked out how to put the Mega CD disc on it. This is issue 1 with this nice little Vikings game on it, the Lost Vikings, and that's issue 1. That's the first one we put out of Mega Power at Paragon Publishing. I was still designing the magazine back then. Mega Power would be the first magazine I would edit for the company, so that's a valid point. Total Tattoo Master, Total N64. I've talked about that. Beautiful magazine. Now, people ask me, the question I get asked the most probably, apart from where you're trying to take the shortcut on Mario 64, is what was your favourite magazine? What magazine did you most enjoy working on? Because I worked on many, as you can understand. And it was without a doubt this one. Games World magazine was, for me, the magazine that I enjoyed working on most. I'd been at Paragon Publishing for a couple of years by then, worked my way up. I was editor, and my magazines were pretty successful. I was on the TV shows. Once again, Future had come out with GamesMaster magazine. They'd got the license to that one. Future were very good at getting the licenses to the next big things. And GamesMaster magazine came out, and for a multi-format, that kicked everyone's asses. The sales went through the roof. Most multi-formats were selling 50, 60,000 copies a month. I think GamesMaster sold about 200,000 on launch or something. It was phenomenal. And at Paragon, we decided we had to have a multi-format magazine. We didn't have one. And of course, at the time, not only was I presenting on GamesMaster, but I was also a presenter on Games World. I was working for Hewlett and had a presenter's contract with them, as well as being an editor at Paragon. So we had an in. So we went up and we saw Hewlett, and we signed up the official license for the Games World magazine. Now, Games World was nowhere near as big as GamesMaster. And we knew that. GamesMaster was on terrestrial TV, Games World was on Sky. It was on Sky 1 5 nights a week. But we're talking around about 1994. And in 1994, Sky wasn't that big. It was growing. You had Sky and you had Sky B, I think, still at the time. And Sky was gradually getting an audience, but it wasn't that big. Still, terrestrial TV was the thing. If you were on one of the big 4 channels, millions saw you. If you were on Sky, yeah, of course you could be seen all over the world, but it was a much smaller audience. It was growing. Satellite TV was still very embryonic. The internet did not exist. We got this official license, knowing it wouldn't compete massively with Future, but it could get us a piece of the market. So Games World came out. And the publishers came to me. We got the official license, and I was given pretty much an open budget to put my own team together, which was really, really exciting. They told me I could handpick anyone I wanted to put together the best multi-format team I could put together. So we brought in Mark Kendrick, who I think was at Impact at the time. He came in to design it. Nick Walkland had been working at Hewland on the actual Games World show and GamesMaster shows. He had a magazine background. I brought him down. Abe Price had been working at Hewland as well. He was ex-Future, so I brought him in as well. And so I gradually handpicked what I considered to be the best team of writers and designers I could get for the magazine. And we went at it. And the first issue, unfortunately, we went with a game called New Breed, which we'd all seen at various conventions and shows, and everyone was very excited about it. The graphics were incredible. Everybody was competing for it. We got it as our exclusive for the front cover, and then unfortunately the game didn't appear. The game died. It got axed, and so we needed a really big second cover. And around about that time, Mortal Kombat 2 was coming out. Now, Mortal Kombat 2 was going to be the next big thing, of course, but bigger magazines and us, more established magazines than us, had signed up the exclusives on it, which was always a problem. But somehow the advertising dates, the advertising sheet that had gone through to the producers of Mortal Kombat 2 had a deadline on it for our magazine that that was wrong to the actual deadline of the magazine. It actually showed us as coming out later than we did come out. So we were allowed to go and see the game. We saw the game, we put it on the front cover, and somehow we came out ahead of some of the magazines that had the exclusive on the game. So that was a fortunate little accident for us in that we picked up a lot of readership off that one, and Games World got off on a good foot. And this was the magazine as well where the GamesAnimal character started coming into his own. At that point I was on TV 4 nights a week and producing this magazine, which was a big launch, and started putting huge pictures of myself on the editorial pages, etc. The ego maybe started getting out of control a little bit, and but why not? My magazine. So that's what we started doing, and so things took off. As you saw, the book on the front, Arcade Combat, was always a very popular book. People loved that book, telling you how to play competitively Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter 2, Virtua Fighter, the big arcade games at the time that I was known for having extreme prowess on. And of course later on we did Arcade Combat 2, and that was Games World magazine. Well, that's my box. That's all the magazines. So if you like old time magazines, hopefully that was a good little walk down memory lane for you. Next up, Urban Midnight, the producer who did the new GamesAnimal theme at the front end of this show. He's made a unique tune for me for use on the show, which I'm going to use now. Also, when I found this box of magazines, I also found a box of old VHSs, which I'd carried around with me because back in the day when you were doing the old TV shows and you were out filming things, you saved everything on VHS, video recorder. There were no digital files as such. So I found all these old VHS tapes, and I've winkled through a few. And here now is some extremely rare footage of me helping launch Bubsy 2 at, I think it's HMV, I'm not sure, level 1 on Oxford Street on a Saturday afternoon back in the 90s, interspersed with some footage of myself raising money for charity by taking part in a games challenge in the Bournemouth town centre that was broadcast live on radio across the area. Somehow I had video footage of both these events. I've put them together to the soundtrack of Urban Midnight's tune, which is called, what have we called it? I think it's Meek May Inherit the Earth. But anyway, enjoy it. Enjoy the old footage. I'm keeping on going through the VHS footage. And next show, which should be out in a couple of weeks, because I'm going to try and do them quickly whilst we're on this quarantine, I'll get more footage on there of old gaming events from the 90s that probably no one else has seen before and nobody else has the footage of. So anyway, please stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Enjoy the tune. Meek May Inherit the Earth.
The 2 runs on my console. Meek May Inherit the Earth. The 2 runs on my console.